Good morning, Sandy. No problem. We're just waiting for the rest of the team to join.
Yes, thank you very much.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. We're just waiting for one more person from our team to join. Sandy, it's good to see you. It's been a while.
Yes, I didn't connect the name. How are
Yes,
you?
good.
Oh, lovely to see you.
Yeah. Doing these meetings, I've seen a lot of people from what, over 50 years ago.
Yes. And so your role currently, is it with the Ministry of
Yes,
Education?
I'm in the
Or,
ministry.
oh,
Yes.
fabulous. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, this is a big step ahead.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like we're somewhat going back, but going back to something that we know was, at least for me, I felt was a positive, the
Mm-hmm.
primary senior structure,
Yeah.
moved to the middle school structure. I know it came with its challenges, but it is
Mm-hmm.
exciting to see that sometimes you can reflect on the past to move forward.
Absolutely.
And that, as I often share with our new staff, it's okay to change, like
Yeah.
it's all right to try something. If it doesn't work, then we try something
Then you
different.
go back.
Just
Yeah, for
embrace change.
sure.
Mhm.
Okay, I think our full team is here. So we can get started. Just for those who don't know me, I'm Jasmine Smith, the permanent secretary for the Ministry of Education and the lead of the history and legacy component of the rescoring process assessment meetings. So just wanted to give you a little background. In July 2023, the Minister of Education announced that we would include a history and legacy component to the parish primary school decision rubric. The process so far to get us to this point included feedback and input from the minister's history and legacy committee. It's a working group at this point, and the ministry's policy team. Earlier, through consultation for the first round of the school's decision making, a lot of the schools had indicated that they did not have representation on the school location strategy team. That was the team that actually carried out the work and made the recommendation to the minister on which schools should be parish primary schools. So the minister at that time committed to having participation from the schools representatives on this component of the process. So today, the purpose of this meeting is for the school community representatives to provide history and legacy related information to our assessment team for consideration and rating. The rating is on a scale of 1 to 5, and the 4 categories which were included in the correspondence, we will be taken into consideration, and there will be a total of 20 points. At the end of the process, we will share that information with the minister, and the minister makes the final decision. He may or may not consult with his cabinet colleagues, but the decision is his to make. So just a little bit about our committee. We have, I'm leading the committee, but we also have Kim Dismont Robinson, who is the Director of Community and Cultural Affairs, as well as Carla Ingerman, who's on the meeting with us today, and she works at the archives, and Dave Northcott, who's a policy analyst with the Ministry of Home Affairs. He is not attending the meetings, but his role is compliance to ensure after the meetings going through the recordings, whether we comply with the process. And I also have with me today Tanisha Otley. She is a policy analyst within the ministry, and she has worked with the History and Legacy Working Group from its inception. So for consistency and continuity, we've included her in these meetings. So the meeting is scheduled for an hour. And in terms of format, I don't know if you have a presentation or you're just going to share with us openly, Principal Edwards, but we're open to anything. I mean, we can ask questions or we can just hand it over to you to share with us. The meetings are recorded, and the recording serves as the formal record for the meeting. So it will be available in the ministry. So let's get started.
Okay, Sunday is going to lead us today.
Yeah, thank you. And just before we start, I see faces that actually I went to school with, so nice to see you all.
Okay, so do we need to go around to say who we are? I guess.
If you wish, but I've noted all the names, and we just see you as your Somerset Primary School Community Representatives.
Okay.
Okay. So Sandy, we hand it over to you.
Thank you. It is a great honor to be representing Somerset Primary. And at the same time, I don't know why, but I'm absolutely nervous. I shouldn't be because I'm amongst peers, but it just feels like such a responsibility to ensure that in this short period that we are presenting the full story. And that is a challenge, as we have discovered as the team doing the research. When does our story start? And that was a key point, for the consideration of this, because as we know, every parish have their primary schools, and every school has its history and legacy. Does that make ours any better or different? No, we all have a is that we are one big community. So a lot of the names that I came across, I had to dig deep and try to remember, was that a Somerset Primary student or was that a West End Primary? Did it matter at the time? No, it didn't, because for us, we just embraced everybody as part of our community. We were all together at church, at the community events, and continue to do so as such. So, not to negate or take away from either schools, and I don't want to compare as either. I just want to be able to do justice to Somerset Primary. So I did write down a few little things in order to at least address in the beginning some of the topics that you wanted us to cover. But a lot of the information is too much to provide in just a brief overview. So we do have things in writing that we can certainly submit, especially when it comes to the points about the persons who exemplify the ethos and values of our school, community, national, international awards and recognition. We had a very long and outstanding list of representatives from Somerset Primary and prior. So rather than call out names, of which maybe some may not even be aware of, it may be better for us to at least submit those documents if we could.
Yes, you
For
can.
the record, thank you.
Yes,
Rod.
you can,
You
you
going
can
through 'em?
submit them. And just up to 3 days after this meeting, they need to be submitted through the school principal.
Wonderful. So
So-
we can put those documents into a formal format and ensure that there's consistency, because as I said, when it came to names and representatives, there were representatives in all sectors of the community. So, you know, law enforcement, community and school, educators, Olympians, sports. So we had a very long list and a very diverse list of representatives who have gone on to do impactful, whether in their endeavors or in their role in the community. So if I could, and again, just to prepare myself, I did a little bit of research on what the vision was as stated by the ministry. And so to connect with that, that was my challenge. How do I bridge our history and legacy with the vision for the parish primary schools? The parish primary school vision seemed to be addressing two key areas. One was regarding infrastructure, and we know already that the infrastructure has been addressed. It talked about the vision is 21st century learning facilities designed to facilitate the delivery of customized learning. So we know that we already have a facility in place and a structure. The infrastructure has already been assessed, so we've ticked that box. The delivery of customized learning experience for students. We already know that Somerset Primary has, over the past 5 decades and continues to do so, provide that opportunity. And nurturing the partnership with schools, families, and the community. And again, it is very much a community-based school and is supported not just by past alumni and past educators, but it is supported by the community in large. You know, we see successive generations of our children and our grandchildren attending this school. It has that definitely that feel that you're coming home every time you go back to Somerset Primary. In regards to learning, under the Learning First Bermuda, the vision spoke of, and I quote, all students are educated to lead personally and professionally, compete locally, and contribute globally. So that's what I worked with in regards to connecting our history and legacy to that particular part of the vision statement for our school. So if you don't mind, I'll just read a little bit of what I just made as far as my notes. And I apologize, I did a quick dash before I got here, so I am a little out of breath. I got stopped by a past visitor wanting to chat, so I will try and by all means pause me if you need me to, but I am cognizant that we only have an hour to share over 50 years worth of our wonderful history. So the history of Somerset Primary, and again, connecting it to our vision as a community. Somerset Primary is a community school whose timeline exemplifies progress with the move to desegregated education ahead of mandated national legislation. And it embraced growth with the amalgamation of several parish schools over a transitional period that brought about the integration of nationalities, because we had the bases here, and religions and race and socioeconomic community sectors. So for example, I grew up in Dockyard. It was a very, Somerset Primary had a history prior to becoming Somerset Primary as a school for a certain demographic and an affluent community. So with the amalgamation of the schools such as Bowes Island, it then transitioned to the Somerset Primary that we know today and that most of us are connected to. How that connects to the parish school vision. With its 50-plus year history of community diversity, in our school population and exposure to other cultures, nationalities at an early age, this establishes inclusivity and diversity as the norm, a mindset that is needed if our students are to be successful in a world that has become globally competitive. So again, focusing on the fact that Somerset Primary has, over 50 years, been known as a very integrated school when it comes to social and economic, and especially nationalities and cultural differences. And we have embraced that, whether it's, different religions, and on Lent, we all went to different churches, or with the different base schools. We had the Canadian base, the American base, and the British base. And so we just went to school alongside them. So when those different schools all amalgamated over in the early 70s, that was when Somerset Primary became the Somerset Primary that we know of today. So that history of prior to that, we don't want to negate the division that was created in the community because of it, but we want to recognize and honor the fact that progress was already in place with the integration of the school and the move towards desegregation of education. So Somerset Primary embraced that as part of their vision prior to becoming nationally mandated with legislation in the 1970s. So our transitional period that we're talking about sort of covers the 1970 to 1973 period. And that's when, as I mentioned, we took on the name of Somerset Primary School, whereas before it was known as Sands Grammar School. So for the sake of moving forward, I've focused more on the Somerset Primary that I knew and that I went to, that was an integrated school starting in the early 70s. So when we look at our legacy, I think part of the legacy of the school is, in fact, and we have representation here with Mr. Shastri, is the fact that this has been a community school that from the very beginning has been supported by a board of trustees, which is a very unique opportunity in Bermuda. Not many of our parish schools are supported in the community in that way. So the legacy ties into our history. As I mentioned, known prior to Somerset Primary as a segregated school for the children of affluent families, that dissipated rapidly in the short 2 to 3 year transitional years to school that was representative or more representative of our community. The families and friendships ranged from Dockyard to Somerset Bridge or beyond. It included all religions that are respected and honored. All nationalities and cultures were welcomed and celebrated and embraced. And a school, like many other schools, with a consistency of standards, longevity of educators. Some of the educators that taught me taught my son. Wonderful to see when you go back that you know that there's that loyalty. Ms. Gooden, for example, even taught my son. So to see that there are educators who are committed to the school and are still with the school is very, those relationships, and it's all about relationships. So when you have that relationship with an educator, it's same as the relationship you have with your doctor. You go back again and again, and you know they know you, they know your family. So there's that comfort in knowing that that consistency is there. So along with consistency of standards, longevity of educators, we also see, as I mentioned, the successive generations of families our children and our grandchildren attend. Not just that, but also the Somerset Primary student and staff alumni stay connected and supported in their capacity as community partners, as whether on the PTA board and as trustees. So we do see that it is a parish school that even those who have moved overseas, and there are a lot of families who have moved overseas, they stay connected, whether it's through a Facebook group that was established by a past educator to help share those memories and keep things going, or by parents joining on the PTA or joining the trustees. I find it just very comforting to know that this school is broadly supported by its community. So hopefully that addresses a bit of the first point that was requested of us, but happy to answer any questions at this time before we move on to some of the other points. And feel free the rest of the team if I've missed anything.
I don't have any questions. I think you've covered that great. Yeah.
Sunday, just to let you know, I'm traveling on business. Sorry, everybody, for weird background. So I do have to leave at 1:30. Just so you know, I'm sorry I didn't realize it was an hour. My apologies.
Thank you for still joining us and being present. Appreciate
Okay,
the
Thank you.
support.
Dave, can you just shed a little light on in terms of how the trustees, because of the time that you have to make, just to
Yeah.
shed a little light about the trustees and how they represent the primary.
Yeah, thank you. So the Sandy Schoolhouse Trust was named that because the original support was created in terms of purchasing some buildings that were used to house teachers. And one of them was for the headmaster, and then 2 smaller cottages which housed teachers up on Scotts Hill. And then eventually, over time, those were turned into monies that we now use, all in support of activities at school. I'll describe that in just a second. Those monies were generated by the founders of the trust, who felt that there would be a need to support the school with additional funding from time to time. We understand that the government provides certain facilities and features for the school, but they had a slightly a vision in the community of what they could do to support the school in a very similar way to a PTA, and we do have a PTA. And our vision is to walk alongside of the PTA and the administration of the school in support of enhancing the experience of students in an aspirational way. And we feel very much tied to that. We've done that. And that may take a lot of different views, but one of the ties that connects to is the longevity of the teachers in the school. We've always been very supportive of the longevity of the teachers. If there are, partial support for teaching programs, etc., we are there for that. We take a broader view. We've supported the purchase of violins for the school. We supported the library and in the school, and we continue to support with programs like the senior years. They have a handbell choir that's been traveling to Canada. We've come alongside the PTA to support that program, and we feel that provides an enormous leveling support for children regardless of their background. Of course, we want to see the PTA and the parents' involvement. That's very critical to us. We don't want to do something outside of that. We certainly wouldn't do something outside of what the school principal and the school administration would do. And so we meet regularly to ensure that we're completely aligned with doing that. So think of us as just an additional, different outlet, which is there for supporting school. All these funds, we do not go out. We are not a charity. We do not seek funds from the public or anything like that. We have an amount of money and we manage that. And we use the income from those funds to support these programs. And the intention of that is just like a foundation, that this will exist long into the future. And it's intended, as you know, much of thoughtful people look at this, their role as a custodian of the future. And that's the way we see our role. We have continued to bring in different trustees. I was brought in the 90s. I have all my 3 children went through Somerset Primary School. And then none of them live in Bermuda now. I wish they did, but they've achieved a lot, and I'm very grateful for the grounding. It was a different time, of course, when they were attending in the late 80s, 90s. And so that's the purpose of Somerset Primary. Diverse things, as I talked about, even air conditioning for the auditorium. We purchased that because we have a lot of activities at Somerset Primary in the auditorium, and sometimes that can be a little stifling. And we know that the government can't provide everything all the time, and so we wanted to be there to support that. So that involved a lot of money, but also a lot of support to get it accomplished. So, anyway, the trustees are also a diverse background from Somerset Primary, including former teachers and students and parents of students. So that's the background that we have. We're connected. We're not going anywhere. We are there to support this part of the community that we feel very strongly about. So, any questions? Of course, we have a document that we provided to our group and provide some history on what we've done. But any questions, we'd be there for that. I would add one other thing. We speak every 6 months to our money managers that we allocate to help ensure that the monies are there for the future. And we always tell them the story of why we are there, because our purpose is very important to understanding their role in helping us make sure that money's there into the future to support the activities and the children in the school. That's very important. And they tell us that they use that story when they talk to other foundations. And so that makes us a bit proud, I suppose, but more importantly, we think that it's an example that we hope, and we can't be for everybody. We're there for our community, but we're grateful that we're able to do that. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that. I can share that the minister and I had the opportunity to meet with the trustees, and you were not available that day, but those that were there did share information with us that we were hearing for the first time. So I'm glad that the information will be included. Principal Edwards, hopefully we can get that information, because I think it's really important that everyone understands the role of the trustees. I believe that hearing in the public, they just don't understand what your role and your function. So that would be good information to have for the formal record.
If I could pick up from Mr. Shastri's, one of his points about the role of the trustees and their support. One of the key things that I pulled from the Bermuda Public School System Education Reform document was the fact that the goal is to create this two-tier public education system, of which there will be 10 high-quality and equitable parish primary schools. And equitable was the word that sort of stuck with me, because especially now as our economy is getting more challenging for many of us, how do we ensure that there is equity of resources, equity of finances? When I went to Somerset Primary, I was provided the foundation that I needed, and was able to apply for scholarships to private schooling and at the high school level. And that opportunity wouldn't have been there had it not been for the scholarships. And similarly, people like Trevor Lindsay also shared his experience, from TNN News, that had it not been for his primary educational foundation, he applied and was also eligible and received a scholarship to Saltus School. So, it was because of that really strong, those foundational years, that we afforded the opportunity to for advancement in our education. And so when I was thinking of equity and where we are looking at equitable education, for the Sands Parish, we don't necessarily want to, again, be comparing ourselves just with other parish primary schools. We really need to be comparing ourselves and ensuring that the equity we provide is also competitive with the private school sector. Because we see a lot of those scholarships at the university, the tertiary level, being received by those who are who've had the advantages of a private education that maybe afforded them more exposure to international opportunities, or to be able to participate in some of those extracurricular activities that are really looked at now, not just academic success, but they look at the holistic student. What volunteer work are they doing, or where are they spending their free time? What extracurricular activities are they involved in? And so access to tertiary education has to start very early on with providing equity of opportunities. So by exposing them to opportunities like the Handbell Choir, the Men and Women Foundation, the Brownies, the Highland Dancers, Somerset Primary, because of its hall, has always sort of been that place where a lot of those activities were held. And so even summer school, when I went to school, that's where summer school was held, because they had the infrastructure and the space. So when we're focusing on equitable parish primary schools, I think it's very imperative that we start thinking globally, as the government reform is looking to do, and how are we going to set up our students for that opportunity to receive scholarship funding when they're older, should they require it. So going back to sort of the next question that was on the list, that or next study factor, I should say. Sorry, Dave.
I'll leave you now.
Thank
you. I
Thank you
apologize.
so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So yes, so that sort of just spoke to me in regards to, discuss the vision, and when we're talking about the mission statement and the objectives of the reform, the view of equitable education. I think it's not just about infrastructure, but we need to ensure that we are also thinking holistically. How do we measure against what the private schools are being able to offer our students? And I definitely see that those measures are already in place and have been in place at Somerset Primary, by providing the community, not just our students, with access to some of these extracurricular activities that are so important in getting them to the next level. Do we want to move on then to some of the others, or are there any questions from the board, from the ministry?
I don't have any. Carla, did you have any questions? Nope, we're good for you to carry on.
Okay, thank you. So the second factor that was addressed was persons who exemplify the ethos of the school and or have meaningfully impacted the school community and or Bermuda. As I mentioned, our list was very long, and felt very proud actually when we started seeing the broad representation. As I mentioned, we had law enforcement, we have community social, we have education, sports, art, culture, history, social welfare, politics, hospitality and tourism, healthcare, community safety. Those are just some of the sectors that Somerset Primary students have entered, and not just entered, but excelled and have connected back with their community in support. And many of them actually have been acknowledged through local press. So what I've done is our list of some of those names, divide them by category, and provided some links to the local press, as you can see further information on their successes. So I believe that all of our Somerset Primary students, I guess not just our students, sorry, those that we are referencing, just like others in the community, they are very integrated in our community. Some of the names may have been through extracurricular activities, church or summer school, Brownies, etc. As I mentioned, some of those connections, I'm thinking, was that Somerset Primary, or is that just somebody from the community? But again, because Somerset Primary was the home base for a lot of those extracurricular activities and summer school, others, even if they went to different schools, still had a connection with Somerset Primary because like somebody I know, like, oh yes, well, we went to Saltus, but we went to summer school at Somerset Primary. You know, so even if they went to private schools, there was still that connection to Somerset Primary through the holidays as the community school that you went to for summer school. So thinking of it not just through the academic year, but as a year-round community center. Before there was a community center, that's what Somerset Primary was as well. So we'll provide you that full list, and I feel that, you know, just looking at some of the accomplishments of those individuals, whether they're Olympians or, you know, now running the National Museum of Bermuda as the registrar, or high up in law enforcement, they speak volumes. And I think one of the key things, as Dave mentioned, is, you know, his children have now all left Bermuda, and quite a number of our community members have gone on. But that's also speaks to the value of an education system that is setting up our students for success in a global economy. And so we know that that is the future, and that is the vision of this mandate by the ministry, that they want to ensure that our students are being educated to a level that will prepare them for global success, not just local, but global. Many of us choose to come home. This is where family is. This is where community is. And many of us still live in the community and work in the community. Some of us are never getting out of dockyard, and I'm quite happy with that. I call myself a dockyardian, but we're still connected. You know, we're still part of the community. We're still, you know, actively organizing beach cleanups or taking our children on supporting the PTA. Even if they're not our children, I'm still auntie, you know, so you still want to be there for them. You're still, you know, showing up for any of those activities. So it is very much a community base, and there's still a lot of us living in the community and working in the community. But for those who've had the opportunity to go abroad and, you know, who are married overseas or decided to stay on overseas, we have provided that foundation. It's those foundational years that really help define who we're going to be as adults. I really believe that. And I know that my foundation at Somerset Primary, I wanted to enter education, and that's what I'm now doing. I'm in conservation education. And so that I knew from a very early start, and that was started at Somerset Primary. We, at that time, you know, and I think children still do, you look to your educators on a level maybe above your parents. You know, they wear these super capes, and educators at the primary level really have a lot of influence as to the direction that our children take. And so seeing the successes of so many Somerset Primary students when I put together that list was phenomenal and inspiring. So as far as community, national, and international awards and recognition, perhaps the school might be able to speak more to that. Just a current example that I'm able to contribute at this time, and just again, cognizant of time. We recently, I work at Dolphin Quest, I'm the outreach manager here, and try and organize every month different community outreach endeavors. Our most recent one was our Student Steward Art Contest. And we went in person and delivered flyers to all of the schools. It was disseminated through the Ministry of Education to all of the schools. We had 17 schools participate. And of the 74 entries, 35 were selected to be sent and have been sent to compete in an international competition in Mexico representing Bermuda for the Delfines Festival of the Ocean, which is held every year, and it represents all the Caribbean and Mexico, but they have international works from Europe, from Hawaii, from America. And so we have 35 representatives from Bermuda from the different schools. Of those, the school, drum roll, the school with the most participants was Somerset Primary. So they incorporate these type of endeavors because it aligned with the curriculum and the framework codes that they had to address. And so a lot of the educators actually incorporate some of these conservation education opportunities that we provide right into their curriculum. Similarly, we already have planned an Earth Day cleanup for the school with the P6s, which we have done in the past as well. So, that community involvement between like ourselves and the Endeavor program have also said that they have worked with Somerset Primary in the past and are hoping to resume that. There are a lot of community-based programs in Dockyard in Somerset that provide equal opportunity to all of the schools, but are all the schools taking advantage of those opportunities? And I can definitely say Somerset Primary does, and I am very pleased and proud to be working with them in that regard in my professional capacity. So we can definitely, again, put together that list, and we'll provide that in writing for you. As we are getting down to the last little bit of time, our contribution of history and legacy of the school to the achievement and well-being of today's students. So again, if we think about, history and legacy, we can go all the way back, looking at the 200-year history of the Dockyard, for example. But realistically, most of us, when we think of Somerset Primary, we think of the modern history, the past 5 decades. The Somerset Primary that most of us know and are familiar with. Yes, our time before that, as various schools, did contribute to where we are today, especially when we talk about the support and community support and the trustees. But the past 5 decades, realistically, when you look at 5 decades in the history of Bermuda and Bermuda's education, is a very small snapshot of us. But I think it's a really good representation of the vision that the school had back then and the vision the school has now as we move forward. And it aligns with what the ministry is seeking to do, which is to ensure that there is integration, there is equity. And when we look at the current makeup of our student population, we can see such an integration of nationalities like the Filipino and the Indian communities who have now moved, and a lot of them do work in the West End because of it being a hospitality hub. So as we see those community groups who have joined us in more recent years start to age as we get older, we will now see more of them becoming the names on our list representing us. So obviously, those that we see on that list now from 50 years ago are of a certain demographic or a certain background. But as we see more of the other nationalities entering our school system, they are now making their way into the high school years, and we're going to start seeing a more diverse representation of our local achievements. One person I did want to mention, and this particular individual is, we're not certain, there is not historical information as to her primary education. However, the contribution that she made to Sands community, I think, is worth noting. She is actually one of our national heroes, Gladys Morell, and her family. Her daughter was the librarian at Springfield, and her grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-grandchildren attended Somerset Primary and have gone on to achieve great things, including our Olympian Peter Bromby. So that is Gladys Morell. She is known as our national hero, and her 4 grandchildren, Kathy, Thalia, John, known as Bo, and Peter Bromby, all attended Somerset Primary. She's known not only for her role in the suffragette movement for equal voting rights for women, but for her work in founding the Bermuda Welfare Society, which was responsible for the creation of district nursing, providing support especially for women and children, and for the advancement of education and environmental causes, healthcare, and universal adult suffrage. She was also the founder of the Somerset Lawn Tennis Club and a member of the Sands Parish Vestry. It's believed that she contributed to the land usage of certain areas in Sands to be used for education purposes, including the Tintop Infant School on Soundview and Somerset Primary, as well as donated land to be preserved for environmental purposes, which is now a National Trust property, known as the Gladys Morell Nature Reserve on Soundview Road. So again, I can provide a link to information on her biography, but it's a very rich one that speaks to our community and how, again, prior to the desegregation of education, there were people in our community advocating for our community, advocating for education, advocating for the rights of women, advocating for better health care, especially for the maternity level, you know, so for the births, providing a district nursing program that didn't just stay with our community, but went into the other parishes as well. So it started in Sands, you know, so again, a lot of when we speak of our commitment, our involvement, and our contribution to the community, for many of us, we don't look at this person went to this school, this person went to this church, this person, you know, went to this social club. We think of Sands very much as a tight-knit community. And so I would like to think that going forward, we continue to think of us as one community and supporting everyone. And I know that Somerset Primary already does that and will continue to do that. So I think I've probably, hopefully covered most of what the study factors are, but I'm open to any questions that you might have. Again, I'm the kind of person who could talk probably all day, but I'd rather provide it to you in writing.
No, I think that you've covered all that we had on the list. Carla, did you have any questions?
I do not, but thank you, ladies, for sharing with me. I learned a lot about Sands. I lived in Somerset for a bit, and I didn't know any of this. It's really, yeah, it's really, you guys have a really cool history.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I add something?
Sure, Catherine.
Thanks, Jasmine. First of all, Jasmine and we left Somerset Primary together.
That's right.
She's one of my friends I made when we amalgamated with Buzz Island. And we've remained friends. How many years? No, don't say it, Jasmine. Don't say it.
Absolutely.
Don't say it, Jasmine. Yeah. But another thing I'd like to add, all of my great-grandmother attended Sands Grammar. So that was in the 1800s. Myself, my siblings, my children have all come through. Two of my grandchildren have come through. One is presently there in P5. But as a parent, when I've watched my children grow and excel at school, all of them have actually, I've always thought back to, if they didn't have the foundation, if they didn't have that teacher as their first teacher, because I didn't send my kids to preschool. So I taught them myself. But so when they started, their first teacher was P1 teacher. And I've always been a firm believer that if you have a bad P1 teacher, you're going to hate school for the rest of your life. If you have a teacher that individualizes their teaching to you as a person and looks at you and doesn't compare you with anybody else, whether it's your siblings or anybody in the class, but gives you some attention, that you will excel in life. And my kids have gone on to be valedictorians coming out of high school. But I always think, wait a minute, look how many Somerset Primary children are in the top, have all attained honors. I don't know if I have a crazy mind, but that is literally how I think. I used to come back to Somerset Primary when my kids were in middle school at Sands, and they've all traveled the same history. They've gone Somerset Primary, Sands Middle, and Cedar Bridge Academy. And so I would come back to Somerset Primary and say, well, not necessarily to Miss Edwards, but to Karen Whitecross Smith, the administrator. I'd be like, hey, Karen, you know how many Somerset Primary kids were on honors? You know how many were in the top 10? You know how many were? And I think that that says a lot for a school, because to me, if the foundation is bad, what's going to happen to the building? It's going to fall down. So I've never had an issue. I'm not saying issues don't exist with others or what have you, but I just feel that because I've had such a long history with Sands Grammar that, and even with my grandkids looking forward, you know, seeing how it's going to be there. I'm there. I've gotten phone calls from the PE teacher. We need a driver. Are you free on this day just to transport a team to such and such a place. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll be there.
Mhm.
So that's what I thought I would like to just, as a side note, because I have this long history of from being in Sands Grammar, but it was never segregated when I was there because they'd already integrated children before the law was enacted in 1971. And then, like I said, I have my great friend Jasmine, and all thanks to integrating 2 schools. I would
And
have
it
never known her
back, yeah,
otherwise.
it goes back to relationships. And I feel like the
Mhm.
relationships between parents and educators, as we're supporting, it takes a village to raise a community. That's how it is. You know, we're in the grocery store, if I see children, you know, who are maybe not upholding our values or our uniforms as adults, you know, we hold them accountable. And similarly, our educators are the ones who are holding our children accountable when we're at work and they're in their care for more time than they are in our care. And so we really put a lot of our trust and our that our educators are raising our children, and they do a wonderful job, you know, in upholding the core values of our community, ensuring that respect is carried on. It's not just about what they learn, but it's how they learn, and it's about those community values that I think are instilled very early on that helps them to continue on as part of our community leadership.
Mhm. Well, that's good. Well, we have a lot of information. I don't think we need anything else. Did you want anything else, Carla, or are we set?
I
I know
suppose the
that,
only other question I would have is in terms of your, the property itself. If you were going to be the parish school, is there room for growth or that sort of thing for the property?
yeah, so Carla, that was
Uh-huh.
addressed in the school building assessment
Okay,
in
so that's
terms of the size of the property. So
So this is
that's all
just,
taken care of. Yeah.
there's
And
no, I'm just wondering, like, if there's no historical activity that happened around the campus or that sort of thing? Like that,
When you say historical, what things that we wouldn't want pulled up or something like that, are you talking in terms of that?
oh, yeah, just in terms of that, yeah.
Um,
not that we're aware of.
not right, not particularly. We did the whole right now, when you remember years ago when we were doing all the planting of the cedar trees, they still exist all around the field. We have also planted some fruit, figs, and where we did a memorial for our custodian that passed a few years ago. Whereas his brother came and wanted to do avocado. We have an avocado tree that we have grown. We presently do the community garden in that they have the competition. We have a compost that we have on campus as well that the children love to dump, even though we are a trash-free school. They love to go to the compost to whatever they collect, and they bring it. Sometimes they even bring it from home. So, yes,
I know the infrastructure was already determined as one of the key reasons why Somerset Primary was selected to be the parish school, and also because the fact that when Bowes Island Preschool closed and moved into the infants department, what was the infants department, it is such a smooth and easy transition for those little ones to now go to big school because they're on the same property, and they have different play areas, but there's also the big, large communal field that is, again, also sometimes utilized by the community. We know that obviously there's been a decline in population numbers. And so obviously that space still exists at Somerset Primary. So should we ever see a reverse in that, thinking ahead, again, thinking about future, when America's Cup came, there was an increase in the number of students on the island. We saw it in our education programs at Dolphin Quest. So potentially we know that America's Cup might be coming back. It is good to know that we have space and that there is that infrastructure is already in place. And it is there is a lot of modern facility structure in place as well already at Somerset Primary.
And even prior to the reform, the preschool and Somerset Primary have done several things together. So even like tomorrow we're having the Easter egg hunt, and we've invited them over. When they do their productions, they come to the hall to do it, and we come to watch. We have done like Bermuda Day with them, sports days with them. So the connection even between the preschool has been in existence. There is also, even though West End is our rivalry, there's still the connection there where when we have the sporting activities, we have the Western Zone sporting, whereas everybody in the Western Zone comes here. West End also shows up. West End houses the six-a-side tournament, so we go to them. So the rivalry and like you always want the rivalry of schools anyway, because it gives you the best of the best. So I think, unfortunately, we don't have the say of the final words, how this is going to go, but I mean, it is what it is. But I'm hoping that everything that we've done, and we will continue doing, no matter what building that we enter into. And I mean, everybody wants to hope and pray that there's their own buildings and I don't have to move anything. But I do understand that, yeah, schools need to be closed. So I'm not against that, and the reform needs to happen. So,
and at the end of the day, it's what is best for the students. And I think, infrastructure really needs to be considered more than anything. But just know that whatever the decision is, I know as a parent and as a community member, they'll have the support of the community. We'll be there wherever it is. It's a building. At the end of the day, it's all our children.
Yeah.
Well, I think you should be proud of what you have accomplished, because it sounds like that everything with the community garden and all of that, it is a holistic approach. Really strong community. I love Somerset.
Yeah, it is.
I switch sides.
there you go.
Hot match.
Don't worry, that's a good thing.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Somerset Primary team representatives. Principal Edwards, I'll look out for that information from you, and we will ensure that it's included in the package from Somerset Primary.
Okay, great.
Thank you all so much, and it was so nice seeing you, Sandy and Catherine. My goodness, it's been years.
Thank you. And thank you for
All
this
right.
opportunity. Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.